As an altcoin holder, you're waiting for the altcoin season, and right now we are in phase 2 where Ethereum is starting to slowly but surely show strength, and we are going to show you charts that explain where we are right now in this current market condition. But on top of that, we have some breaking news over the day today in a few hours. We have the FOMC meeting, as well as on Thursday we have Coinbase reporting their earnings, and today we're going to be taking a look at some of those base altcoins that, in my opinion, when we get into an altcoin season, they are going to do absolutely phenomenal. So if you're new here, welcome. I'm Eric. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and let's talk about all of this news. So Ethereum, first and foremost, 3,800. It's literally been at this price for the better part of the last few days. This is our weekly chart. We have resistance around 3,850 all the way to 4,100. If you go to a day chart, you can see that ever since July 20th, we've basically been in this range from 3,600 all the way to 3,900, which is obviously that level of resistance. This basic, rectangle here that we can put, that is resistance, and that is exactly where we are. So we're still waiting to see Ethereum really break out, but we are continuing to see crazy inflows into ETFs, public companies just pouring into buying Ethereum, because if we look at the path to altcoin season, well, we have seen Bitcoin go from literally $15,000 all the way to $123,000 at the current all-time high. I still think it goes higher from here, but we are currently seeing Ethereum gain dominance on Bitcoin, and we're also slowly but surely seeing Ethereum gain dominance on altcoins as well, because we're not seeing large caps really dominate. We're not seeing alt season really happen. Although, yes, you can pick apart some altcoins that, have done well. In general, since April, all altcoins have done well, but we're not in the crazy phase just yet. I do believe that we're really in phase 2 of this market, which is all about Ethereum. Now, one of the other reasons I say altcoins aren't doing so well compared to Ethereum is if we look at the altcoins market versus Ethereum. What is doing good? What is doing bad? Well, if we plot this chart here, which is the total 3 minus USDT, so total 3 represents altcoins outside of Bitcoin and Ethereum, and you have that minus stablecoin, the USDT, and you divide it by ETH, it gives you this relationship here. And as you can see, ever since we hit, April, where Ethereum just started going crazy, Ethereum has actually outperformed alts. And this is represented here by this relationship going down, because if you take a look at 2021 during the altcoin season, you're going to find that altcoins were actually performing better than Ethereum at some point in time, which is right around here. January is really when that altcoin season started, all the way to the end of April. This move represents altcoin season, but as you can see, what happens before an altcoin season is altcoins go down compared to ETH, because ETH is gaining dominance, it's gaining, strength in the market. People are FOMOing into Ethereum, and then there is a pivot point where altcoins become the talk of the town, and that is what we are currently waiting for. Now, of course, we have a lot of things to get through before we can get an altcoin season, in my opinion. And one of those major things is actually happening today as you're watching this video. So we are talking about the FOMC meeting. This is where the Fed essentially decides whether or not they want to cut rates. Interest rates, as they go lower, people have more money in their pockets. It's as simple as that. Now, today we are July 30th, and as you can see, analysts right now are predicting at 98% chance that there's not going to be a rate cut. It is predicted that it is going to be a non-event FOMC meeting in terms of rate cuts. But we have to understand that there are some nuggets that we can find in that FOMC meeting that could lead us to what could happen in the future. And the next FOMC meeting is in September. So what we're going to want to look for tomorrow, or as you're watching this video, you're going to want to look for Jerome Powell being dovish, meaning being bullish for the future. Hopefully we get questions about future rate cuts and a little bit more certainty as to what's going to happen in September, October, November, December, prior to year end, because analysts are predicting anywhere from 2 to 3 cuts prior to the end of the year. And if we get Jerome Powell to say any of this this in today's meeting. It is going to be bullish for the market, and pay also attention to quantitative tightening, whether or not there's anything said about that and them slowing it down or ultimately stopping quantitative tightening. So this is your first event that's happening today as you're watching this video. Make sure you stay tuned, and if you want to stay tuned with everything crypto, well, the spot to be is in a Discord. That's the first link in the description below, but we're going to get that in a second here. Now, the second thing that's happening, and the main topic of today's video, is Coinbase and Base Coins, because Coinbase is actually releasing their earnings on Thursday, July 31st. And for those of you who aren't too familiar with a Coinbase stock, well, it is now the first crypto stock to be included in the S&P 500. And if you take a look at the year-to-date chart on Coinbase, it's up 50% roughly. But if you look at it from the April lows when it was at $151, it is up slightly over 2x, and it did reach an all-time high of about $420. Now, this is good for crypto adoption. It's good for the future of crypto because Coinbase is one of the top leading exchanges, if not the top exchange. And, you know, they have so many different brackets under Coinbase. You have Coinbase Ventures. And if you trickle all the way down to it, you have the Coinbase wallet, you have the Coinbase exchange, you obviously have the base layer too. And before we get into some of the coins that I wanted to highlight today, as we're not in this altcoin season and still in the Ethereum phase, we still have time to look at these coins. But if you look at what is projected for the Coinbase earnings leading up to the Thursday call, we have an estimated EPS of 1.25. So this is earnings per share. And as you guys know, Q2 wasn't ultimately all that good for crypto because Q2 starts April 1st. We all know what happened in April. Yes, May and June were a lot better, but ultimately speaking, people are expecting Coinbase's earnings to come in lower than expectations. So 1.25 in terms of EPS, and in terms of revenue, we can see it's about $1.6 billion, which is slightly down from previous quarters. But ultimately speaking, I do think that Coinbase is going to be one of the top onboarders of crypto, of new users in this cycle. And even if the earnings are a little lower this quarter around, I would still be paying close attention to base coins because we can continue seeing this in the DeFi space with DeFi Llama. The TVL continues to grow. We're at $4.22 billion of total value locked, and this is basically at all-time highs. And the base blockchain hasn't even seen its own bull market. And Coinbase continues to make things easy for their users, again promoting crypto adoption, with some of the latest news being now that you can simply buy or fund your crypto account with Samsung Pay on Coinbase, and that is going to be available to North American users starting out this week. Again, another bullish thing for crypto adoption. So now that we understand we're still in a phase 2 of the market where Ethereum is really the one we're all talking about, we're seeing Ethereum dominance continue to gain. We're seeing Ethereum do better than altcoins, and it is giving us more time to look at different altcoins. And an ecosystem like Base with, you know, a lot of things going forward, it is kind of a no-brainer to dive deeper into that ecosystem and look at some of the coins that will do good when that altcoin season comes and when that phase 4 of the path to alt season really does take place. So if you look at some of the top trending coins on Base right now, you can do this by going on CoinMarketCap, type in Base ecosystem. You can see that Zora has been the talk of the town since the last few weeks. We've actually spotted that one in our Discord right around 2 to 3 cents. So yes, it is up all the way up to 9 cents, basically a 4 to 3x if you were on the Discord and looking at the chats going through. We were talking about this one, but you can continue seeing so many different coins do well over the last few weeks. And even over the last month, most of these coins are all relatively doing well. But I wanted to, again, just highlight some of the top coins in my opinion. And as we're still seeing altcoins bleed against Ethereum because we're in that phase 2, we're not in the altcoin season phase just yet. People are not patient. And in my opinion, it's giving you more time to accumulate. No, this is not financial advice, but if you look at Aerodrome, it's at 83 cents. And over the last month, it's basically flat, which is quite crazy to think about. And if you look at its all-time chart, well, we're nowhere near the December highs. And I absolutely believe that Aerodrome is going to be one of the leaders on base when we get into the phase 4 altcoin season. And even though you are seeing these little peaks and little valleys, it went up to about $1 just over last week. Now it's back down to 82 cents. It's giving people opportunities to continue accumulating at these lower levels. We're talking about a $700 million market cap that has processed over billions and billions of dollars in trading volume. I am just thinking that this one here eventually is going to be worth a lot more than what it is right now. Again, that is not financial advice, and the only thing I can give you advice on is to not invest money you can't afford to lose, because crypto is risky. And if you're investing money you can't afford to lose and you lose it, well, that is the worst thing you could possibly do. But keep Aerodrome on your watch list. Then if we look at an AI agent platform, we obviously have to talk about Virtual's ecosystem. NVIDIA has just passed, being a $4.3 trillion company, which is absolutely insane. The biggest AI company now. If you look at Virtual's, it is sitting at $1.37 and essentially has been consolidating in this range for the better part of the last couple of months. I do not own any Virtuals. There are other AI plays I'm also looking at, but ultimately speaking, I do think that Virtuals being on base, being in AI space, being in the AI agent space is likely going to catch some momentum as we get closer to an altcoin season, whether it's the ecosystem Virtuals itself or the underlying agents in the Virtuals ecosystem. I think there is still a lot of hype and a lot of room to grow in this narrative. And I do believe that AI is going to be one of the top narratives in this cycle. So if it's not Virtual, if it's AIXBT, if it's another, AI play on the base blockchain, I do think that there is some merit to that narrative. Now, looking at Morpho, this one here is another one we've been continuously talking about, and it is, just at $1.80, a $580 million market cap. The amount of loans that Morpho has through the partnership with Coinbase and Coinbase Bitcoin is in the billions of dollars. There's literally so much money flowing in and out of this ecosystem through loans, through people borrowing, leveraging, and utilizing Morpho as, a way to leverage their positions or to borrow and lend against their position to get into the DeFi aspects in the base blockchain. That is, again, kind of a no-brainer. Here we have it at $1.80. Back in December, it was at $4. So again, to me, if you compare this to a company like Aave or even other top lending projects, I do think that it has a lot of merit. And again, looking in the future at that phase 3, phase 4, as liquidity shifts down from Ethereum to large caps to some of the smaller caps, on the base blockchain, I do think it's going to catch another bid. Another one I wanted to quickly highlight is Researchcoin. The reason I'm highlighting this one is very interesting because we're looking at a $75 million market cap. It is up about 300% over the last year. Over the last month, up about 64%. But some of the top reasons as to why this one is interesting is because if you take a look at who's behind this coin, well, first and foremost, Brian Armstrong, who is the co-founder and CEO of Coinbase, is actually behind this coin. So just over a few days ago, this coin was added to the Coinbase Ventures asset list, which basically means that it's going to get added on the Coinbase exchange. And Brian Armstrong being, co-founder, CEO of Coinbase, could be in a conflict of interest here, but here he is going into the nitty-gritty as to why it's not and why he, started creating this coin. And it is all to advance advance scientific, projects. And the RSC coin is all about advancing scientific projects. And that RSC token is used as the token or utility token within this ecosystem. So again, interesting if you're into, the future of science, new initiatives in that realm. And of course, having Brian Armstrong, the CEO of Coinbase, very, very interesting coin that I would keep on my watch list, again, on Base itself. Now, in terms of gaming, I know we've seen Metacade do very well over the last few weeks, mainly because a lot of hype is around it. If you look at the last month, it's up 120%. We've had, other YouTubers talk about Metacade, so 100%. Continue looking at gaming on Base. Another very good home for gaming as an L2. It's a cheap chain, it's a fast chain, and Metacade is an ecosystem of gaming on Base. So again, keep an eye out on this one. It's up 120%. And I do think that it has a lot of room to grow, especially at a $32 million market cap. Keep your eyes peeled for that. And if you think gaming is dead, well, let me tell you and let me show you some ecosystems that are absolutely not dead. Because if we take a look at Wilder World, which is on ETH as well as on Solana, this one was heavily backed and talked about by influencers in the December-January timeframe. And if you look at what has happened over the last month, this one here, the founders are very active on social media. They were continuing to push and build on their game. And it is, at a $180 million market cap now, but up about 300% over the last month. We've, again, been talking about this one quite some time in the Discord. And partly in due with that project is the Meow token. This was actually launched by the same team on Arena Trade. So we're not necessarily on the Base blockchain here, but I'm just, doing a little parentheses about different projects that you can absolutely continue to make money on, even as though we're seeing altcoins not do very well. You are able to continue spotting some of these projects. And we posted this on the Discord exactly when it launched on June 19th, I believe it was. We got in around, $2 million worth of market cap. Yes, it bled quite a bit, but now it's up at about a $5 million market cap. So with that being said, gaming, I think, is still relevant. No, it's not relevant now, but I think it is going to be in the future. And on Base is even a plus in my opinion. But on AVAX, we all know that AVAX is a very renowned chain for gaming. Now, if you want to see everything that I do in the crypto space, whether I buy, whether I sell, the research that I do on different projects, the alpha I give you guys, we do have a premium Discord. It's the first link in the description below. And to give you that sneak peek, when we called out Meow in the Discord, well, it was in fact on June 19th, right as it launched. I said, I was getting in and not putting too much into it. But ultimately, at this point, it's now a basically 2 to 2.5x, depending on when you got in. But it doesn't always happen like that. And we've been on Zora, like I said, very early on as well. So if you are interested in joining that community, it's the first link in the description below. Again, FOMC meeting today, Coinbase earnings on a Thursday. A lot of things to happen before we get into an altcoin season. Continue monitoring ETH, continue monitoring Bitcoin dominance, and continue looking at where liquidity flows. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you guys in my next video. Peace.